right. Well, then let's get started. We're just going to do the short refuge prayer and four measurables, so that we have as much time as we can to talk about this. So I'm on page 5 of the 101 prayer book. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sangye chodang soki chodam la, Shangju Baidu Dagni Kapsu Chi, Dagi Jinso Ki Pe So Nam Gi, Jola Penshir Sange Ju Pa Sho. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. And may they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Manam kadam yam pe sem chen tam she de wa dang de wei ger dang dem pa jor chi. Dug now dang de now gi gu dang dra wa jor chi. Dog now me pe de wa dang mi dra wa jor chi. Nay ring shak dang ni dang dra wei tang nam la ne pa jor chi. Okay. So this what we're going to talk about tonight, the everyday consciousness and primordial awareness, comes from a book by that title from Kenshin Trangu Rinpoche. Trangu Rinpoche is very well known all around the world. He is a leader. He is one of the main teachers, a master in the Karma Kagyu tradition. And he's got a huge Dharma center and Sangha that's centered in Colorado. So, and there's many videos by him that you can go and go to YouTube and put in his name. It's at the top of this here, Kenshin Trangu Rinpoche, and all kinds of things will come up if you're interested in seeing him. He's given many teachings, and many of those teachings have been transcribed into books. So he covers quite an array of things. So he is a Kagyu teacher. It's in the Kagyu lineage. And the Karma Kagyu and the Drikung Kagyu are very parallel to each other in many respects. So, so everyday consciousness is what we are used to, is what we go through every day, recognizing things and so on. And the primordial awareness is what we are coming to realize, coming to recognize within ourselves. So first we have to understand what is our everyday consciousness so that we know how to organize our thoughts, to organize our mental activity and so on, and to say, okay, this is my human nature, and here is my Buddha nature. to be able to see that, and then we can take our Buddha nature and we bring it in, and it becomes part of our everyday human nature, is what we're trying to actually do, so that we can be enlightened in this lifetime. So we may not reach a perfectly enlightened being, but we can certainly improve the circumstances in which we are living in now. So that we want to do as much as we can. We're preparing ourselves for our impending death, and that when we are reborn, that our rebirth is in a good place, something that we have prepared for, and so that when we are in that new birth, that we can resume our Dharma practices as quickly as possible, and so on. So we may not be aware of it in this way, but slowly we begin to remember things. Things seem familiar to us, things that we're doing right now, maybe some of these teachings, maybe some of these language things that we do with these prayers, maybe some of the concepts that we talk about, and so on. There's a certain resonance that happens within each one of us in different ways, that it's like remembering, say, oh, that really, yeah, that makes sense to me. I really kind of understand that. And so what that is recognizing those karmic seeds that came from prior lifetimes, and so on like that. So we can't say that, it was something we experienced in the year 1850 while we were living in Austria or something like that, or in India or something, may not be something like that. But there is this intrapersonal relationship, that we're all part of this continuum, and where we fall in the continuum, where we are in the continuum is, it doesn't matter. It's just that this is all part of what we are. We are all part of that, So we use that as an illustration, as this vibration that is going through us, or like a fabric that has all these weavings and so on, and that we are woven in that fabric is another illustration of that idea of the continuum. So this continuum is the Tantra. So we talk about the Tantric teachings and we talk about the Sutra teachings. The Sutra teachings are teachings that came from the Buddha, and they are teachings that are, about morality and about, the paramitas and about emptiness and all these teachings like that. There are very important teachings. We need to have those Hinayana teachings and those Mahayana teachings. The Tantric teachings are the Vajrayana teachings. And so they are all part of the same thing. The Buddha taught them, but as he taught them, he was also weaving them in with Mahayana sutras and Hinayana sutras. So some people were only hearing those sutras at that level, while other people that were present were hearing the teachings at the Vajrayana level, at the Tantra level, and so on. So now in a teaching like this, we are being a little bit more explicit about the differentiation between what these levels are and so on, so that we begin to recognize ourselves. The Vajrayana is the wisdom tradition, is the wisdom body of the Buddha, the wisdom vehicle. So what that means is we start thinking at Buddha level. We start experiencing things at Buddha level. So that means that we can see the lower levels. We're not attached to them, because we've been purifying our attachments and our aversions, but we still are able to recognize them. So this is part of the wisdom of being able to do that. So that's the primordial awareness. So when we talk about the 8 everyday consciousnesses, what are the 8 everyday consciousnesses? And these are very simple and things that you have been exposed to one way or another many, many times, but maybe you didn't look at them in this compartmentalized fashion, in this simplicity of what we're about to look at. So, first, out of those 8 everyday mind consciousnesses, we look at the 6 unstable consciousnesses, the 6 unstable mind consciousness, or the 6 collections of consciousness. This is the principal mind, is the way Changu Rinpoche explained it. This is the principal mind of a human being. So these 5 sense consciousnesses are the 5 senses that we have. The 5 gates is the way that he expressed it. The 5 gates, or the 5 sense consciousnesses. So please, somebody tell me what those 5 senses are without looking at the book. What are our 5 senses? Michael?
Eye, ear, nose, and throat.
Doctor, eye, ear, nose, and throat.
It's
and what
hearing.
else? But that was only what? That was only 3.
Yeah.
Eye, ear, nose, and throat. Excuse me, that was 4, but the throat's not one of them.
Well, the tongue's part of the throat, so.
Well,
So
what
you
does
got
the tongue represent? What is the tongue? What does that do?
taste,
Taste. Okay.
taste, nose, smell,
What's
eyes.
the other one? What's the
see,
5th one? What's the 5th
ears.
one?
What's the body touches?
Touch.
Yeah.
So these are the conscious organs. These are the devices that we have attached to us that allow us to be able to recognize these different inputs that come in. So it's like having a computer, and if you don't have a camera attached to your computer, you can't see anything. If you don't have a microphone attached to your camera, you can't say anything. No one can hear you. If you don't have speakers attached to your computer, nobody can hear you, or you can't hear anybody else. And if there was a way to have hands out there attached to your computer, you wouldn't be able to touch things and feel things. So in this way, we're like this computer. Computers are like us. You know, the people, computer engineers, design computers to think like human beings do. And that's why it's hard to trust computers in my book, because human beings made these things. And like we have our foibles, computers seem to have their foibles, right? No matter how sophisticated they get, no matter how expensive they are, they still have, you know, glitches. They still have idiosyncrasies, and we wind up spending, you know, hours and hours, days and days, months and months chasing down these glitches and working around them and so on, much in the same way that we work with ourselves and deal with our own personalities and our own lives and so on. When one thing isn't working in our life, if our eyes aren't working real good, then our ears, our sense of hearing and our sense of taste and smell get elevated, because they have to be much sharper in being able to recognize things that the eyes aren't doing. So we can smell things sharper, we can hear things sharper, and so on like that. So that's like us working around things that we are weak in, what our glitches are. So we have to look at what these sensory devices are: our ears, our eyes, our nose, our tongue, and our skin. And then these are all connected through our nervous system to the brain. So the brain is taking in these signals that are coming in from these sensory devices and are interpreting these signals and creating impressions of what these things are. And then we begin to, you know, say, or every time I hear that, I think of my mother. You know, my mother's coming to feed me or to change me or something like that when we're an infant. Or when we're able to see that the sun is going down at the end of the afternoon, and we're 3 or 4 years old, and we can smell our mother cooking. We know dinner is coming, but we also know the sun is going down. My father is coming home soon. He's going to be home right when it gets dark. So you start anticipating things. You start bringing things together. You start putting things together. So if you remember last week when we were talking about the skandhas, this is the skandhas, where we have, these impulses, we have these impressions, we start to make perceptions of things with sensory input starts coming together, and this is what develops our personalities and so on. So we're looking at these things, and when we look at these things, to look at these things very elementary is that these are what Kenshin Changu Rinpoche says are apprehending consciousness. When we apprehend a certain visual thing, there's a response, and it doesn't require a thought on our part. It just comes in. The camera is on. Our eyes are on, our ears are on. It just comes in. We don't have to think about it. It's just on all the time. It doesn't require any kind of thoughts. And it's non-judgmental at this level. It is just seeing stuff, and it's not processing. The eyeballs just see things. The tongue just tastes things. The nose just smells. The hearing just hears, and the skin just feels things, touches things, but it's not making any judgment about it. It's the brain that does that. But these devices are just input devices. And they only respond for the moment. They are immediate only. If I'm looking at something and I turn the lights off and it turns black, it's gone. As far as my eyes are concerned, it's just gone. If I close my eyes, that is gone. If I can cover my ears, the sound is gone, etc. So the point is that it is immediate only and is temporary. So much of what we do is based on this, it doesn't require thought, and it's only momentary. As long as that is present, do we have any way of recognizing it or seeing it in any way or hearing it in any way? So we call this unstable because it's all, as we say, temporary. It's not permanent, and it doesn't, we can't take it with us. It's not creating a memory by itself. So now we get to the sixth consciousness, which is the mind consciousness. And all these receptors are then connected to the brain through our nervous system. And the brain is processing all this stuff and making all these mental images, so to speak, So, and it brings all this stuff together. It's compounded. It makes all this stuff together and say, oh, if it looks like this, and it sounds like this, and it tastes like this, and so on, it must be this particular thing. So these devices are looking at objects. So we're differentiating the sensors from the objects. So there is sight, the process of the eyeballs connected to the nervous system that it goes to our brain, but there's an object of the sight. There's an object of smell. There's an object of hearing, of touch, and of taste, and so on. So we have to, we have to think about things in terms of objects and subjects. All this is subjective, what is coming in, and then of the objects. So the brain is processing all this as mind consciousness. And this is not thought-free. This is full of thought. This is where our thoughts are in this brain. And we are very much involved in this. And this activity is painting a an interpretation of these appearances. And this is something that we take with us. This is something that we can keep with ourselves in our memory. So we don't have to be present with it in the way that the other devices do. In other words, I can look at something, I can close my eyes, and I can still see that something in what we might say is our mind's eye. You know, if it's simple enough, I may be able to draw it, or I can remember. If it's very complex, it may be more difficult for me to do that. But when I open my eyes again, I may recognize that and say, "Oh yes, that's what my memory is trying to recall." So the mind works in three ways in terms of time. It works in the past, it works in the present, and it works in the future. So the mind is aware of three times. The other devices are immediate only. It's the brain, it's the mind, this little mind that works in these three ways. Now, I know this is very elemental stuff, but you'll see that as we continue on with our practices and teachings and contemplation and so on, it's being able to, again, to compartmentalize what it is to be a human being, what it is, and how it is that we can enhance that experience of being a human being. So it's important to understand these at this elemental level. So these are the six consciousness. When somebody asks you what are the six consciousness, you can say, okay, it's these devices plus it's my brain. It's the mind consciousness, the little mind consciousness, the processing mind consciousness. This is the principal mind, or this is the, I should say, the unstable mind, because we can have things that we see and hear and touch and feel and everything, and objects that we're processing, and we can commit those to our memory, but we can come back and over some period of time, and those things may lose their strength. We may lose the memory of those things. I don't remember exactly how that song goes. I don't remember exactly what color that was. You know, so they're not permanent. They are unstable. They will change. Our memory fades and so on. Plus, and ultimately, when we die, those things are completely gone. No matter what we have put into our storage bank of our brain for what has happened to us in this lifetime is only recalled in this lifetime. So we can have resonance, like I was saying before, in the intrapersonal. When we start awakening our transcendence, we can start recalling things, bringing things in, but we can't, say, oh, this is because I was born in 1850 when I was living in Austria or something like that. We can't.
Would you call that transpersonal, Lance?
I call that transpersonal, yeah. Okay, so we're talking about this temporary, unstable mind. So now we move to the next part, which are the two stable mind consciousnesses. There are two stable mind consciousnesses. Remember, we're talking about 8 consciousnesses, 8 everyday consciousnesses. So first were the 6. Now we're talking about the 2 stable mind consciousnesses. And this is called, number 1, the klesha consciousness. Now, this is a Sanskrit word, klesha, Klesha. And this is the affliction mind. This is the mind of emotions. These are the kleshas, the afflictions, the emotions. So much of what we talk about in our Buddhist practice is purifying the emotions, purifying the kleshas, being able to elevate ourselves from this stable mind that stays with us in a subliminal way. We're not conscious of it until we really kind of bring it up, till we really focus on what it is. It's happening in the background, and it's happening all the time in the background, but we don't recognize it. We don't see that until we start digging into it. Then we start understanding. So this is why we started talking about the 84,000 emotions and the 5 poisons that make up all those 84,000 emotions. So this is the klesha affliction mind, and it affects everything that we do in our unstable consciousness, in our everyday consciousness. Those emotions are constantly influencing our karma, our actions. The inputs, the objects are still coming in. We hear things, we see things, we read things. All these things are coming into us. Our brain is processing them. And then along with that process, it's applying the emotions to that. Do I like this? Do I dislike this? Do I regard this as being love? Do I regard this as being hate? All these different things are now these inputs that are coming in are being conditioned by the emotions. So this is called the afflictive mind, or the afflictions, the afflictive mind. So as I was saying before, that what we're trying to do is to recognize these things and to be able to eliminate our attachment to these things or our aversions to these things. Because together with these conditions that are coming in, these causes that are coming in, then we take our actions, we take our karma, we perform the karma, and then we have the results. So now we have to see that how we do this in the klesha mind, in the afflictive mind. So right now, just write it down, put it down, the afflictive mind. We're going to come back to it over and over again, and you're going to see how much more this is involved in our lives. And now we have a name for it. The klesha mind, the afflictive mind, the emotions, and recognize how this works. So now that's the 7th mind. That's the 7th mind. It's the second of the 2 stable minds. And it's stable because not only does it last in this lifetime, but these emotions can be picked up very quickly by our karmic seeds as you know, these inputs are coming to us, these conditions are coming to us, and if there is a resonance there, they can affect us. Yes, Michael.
Did I miss one? You said that was the second. Did you mean to say that was the first of the stable consciousness?
Yes, the first of the 2 stable. Excuse me, I misspoke. Yeah, the first of the 2 stable, and the 7th of the principal mind. We're still talking about the principal mind. So now, to give this a little bit more depth of understanding, now we go to the second of the stable mind, which is the all base, or the alaya consciousness, the alaya mind. Alaya, A-L-A-Y-A, is a Sanskrit word. It means the all base, sometimes referred to as the all ground. sometimes referred to as the storehouse consciousness. So this is most like the idea of the soul, that there is this mind that we have that is imprinted with the afflictions, that is imprinted with the results of those afflictions, that is imprinted with the senses and so on, that imprint our storehouse mind and stays with us. And this is what we go through when we die. We take this storehouse with us. We take this alaya consciousness with us. You've heard it said many times that when we die, the only thing that we take with us is our karma, or the results of our karma. So this is the idea of the soul. Now, this is a stable mind. So it's like it's being imprinted with these deep thoughts that are staining what we might consider to be this pure mind, and is imprinted in a way that stays with it. However, this is still talking about the principal mind of human beings. This is still our conceptual mind. This is still part of our phenomenal nature. And just as all these other things can be manipulated and overcome when they're weak and fail and so on like that, we can, with these two stable minds, the klesha mind and the alaya mind, we can cut off our attachment to them. We can cut off our aversion to them. They become anchors to us, but not positive anchors, negative anchors. They're like the ball and chain that are keeping us as ordinary human beings. If we can let go of our emotions, as we talk about many, many, many times, letting go of our emotions, and we know how hard that is to do. So what we have to do, we have to cut through them through wisdom, through skillful means, through compassion and so on. Through the alaya consciousness, we have to cut through that, through our attachment to the wisdom consciousness. That we think that we are eternal. And this alaya mind speaks to this idea of eternal, like the soul. And this is a very difficult thing for most people, whether they're in the East or the West, because in most traditions, they all talk about this eternal soul. And to be able to let that go becomes a very, very, very profound thing to do, and puts us on the sharp edge of fear. You know, how can I let that go? So we've been developing this idea all along. When I talk to you about, oh, I don't remember who I was in 1850 and born in Austria or something like that, because we have this propensity to want to know, well, who am I and what was I before? Because I'm this eternal being. I'm this eternal soul. This has been taught to me for 74 years that I've been living, that there is this eternalism. And that when I die, when my physical body dies, I'm then going to be reborn as another body now. So it's better to talk about it in terms of the transpersonal, because that's beyond the conceptualization of the preeminence of the human being. Because this eternalism, this soul, is based on the supposition of the human being being the supreme. So this storehouse, this all base that we, have been, saying, oh, this is my savior. This is the thing that, this is the thing that I take. This is the thing that I've been working on all this time. This is what's going to save me. When I go to the bardo, when I go meet God, whatever it is, when I go meet the Buddha, whatever it is, this is the thing that I'm going to go there with. And that whatever happens in that meeting, in this vast unknown, then I'm going to take that with me, and that becomes my next life. Only if you want it to. If you don't want it to, if you don't need to do that, you can purify that thought. You can cut yourself off from that thought. You say, oh, it's just emptiness. Oh, it's just my imagination. Oh, it's just another thought. It's just another concept. Another thing that the human being does through the ego to maintain its self-preservation. And it's a very difficult thing to do, but it is a liberating thing to do. Many people, when they're beginners, when they come and start, coming to these kind of teachings, and they come and they start doing meditation, and we say, now close your eyes, and so on. And some people get freaky. They say, all I see is black. I'm frightened. All I see is black. So we say, well, you got to have these understand. You got to have these visions. You got to use these colors. You got to imagine the Buddha. You got to imagine Manjushri. You got to imagine Shenreze. You got to put this together. These are all parts of us, and so on. You got to imagine the Sambhogagaya, the enjoyment body of the Buddha, in this darkness. So that when you close your eyes, as you're now a more advanced practitioner, you close your eyes and immediately you go to, oh, I'm Shenreze. Oh, immediately I go to, oh, I'm Manjushri. Oh, I go to, oh, I'm immediately Mahakala, whatever it is. And you enjoy that. You say, oh, this is great. This is great. But if you're really honest with yourself, you come to the realization that when you close your eyes, all you see is black. So there comes a time when you have to let that go. Those are all tools of the trade. And we don't know what's on the other side. And it doesn't matter. This is about your life now. This is about cleansing away all the attachments, all the aversions in this life. And when we become perfect in that, the rest will take care of itself, because it's beyond our comprehension. So the Alaya consciousness is the last vestige of being a human being trying to hold on to the eternal. So all these visions, all these glimpses, all very necessary, but are also just our imaginations, just our enjoyments, are identifying what it is to be able to perfect ourselves, to be able to liberate from all of this. So this is very cutting through fifth teaching. So let's talk a little bit more about the klesha mind, because this is where all this karma is coming from. You know, and just hearing this now for the past 10 minutes is not going to liberate you from the klesha mind. But now you have something to be able to bounce that off of and be able to understand the complexity of what that is, and to be able to, bit by bit, be able to cut those ties and aversions to that. Now we know what the sickness is. So the klesha mind is holding on to the I, holding on to the ego, the I, me, mine, holding on to that. Saying, that's me. I'm looking in the mirror. That's me. I'm looking at the screen, and I'm seeing these 6 images. I'm seeing these 7 images of people here. And I say, oh, there's me, and there's Michael, and there's Bonnie and William, and there's Tom, and there's Curtis, and there's Gary. I see them, you know, and they appear to be real and so on. But the one that I really want to be the most real is me. So we need to be able to have a way to be able to liberate ourselves from that. So we have these 4 mental events. The conception of the I, the me, the attachment to the I, the ignorance or the falsity of the I. Oh, that's not me. And the pride of the I. So these are things that our ego is feeding off of, you know, this identity problem that we have. So what we need to do is to break through our human conceptual mind and be able to view this with a Buddha mind, which is free of the attachments and aversions, so letting go. So we do that over and over again through the process of the deity yoga. Say, okay, if I'm not in union with this appearance, if I'm not the appearance that I see, if I'm not that, then what am I? If I don't have this personality, then what am I? So what we're doing in Vajrayana is we're saying, okay, we are transcending this temporary self, this appearance self. We are transcending that. And what we find is this non-desirous, no desire form body of the Sambhogaya, of the enjoyment body, of being a deity. That we are these deities. And we talk about, the indestructible diamond that has many facets. And each one of these facets is a different activity of this pure nature that we have, which is all true. And we're coming to recognize those things. And we're saying, oh, I'm not me at this lower level. I'm me at this other level here. But this other level here has purified itself, that now all it becomes is bodhicitta action for the benefit of other beings. As we're down here, everything is what? For our own benefit, right? Everything we do is to make ourselves happy. And you know what that creates? Suffering. Because the more we try and make ourselves happy, the more that we're compounding all the junk, that at some point we got to get rid of, or we're not going to carry with us when we die. So it just creates more suffering for us. But as we become transcendent, the more we realize that the thing that we need to be doing is working for the benefit of others. And that way we are being mindful of the ego and not feeding the ego. We're doing things for the benefit of others. The ego doesn't go away, but the ego just decreases. Its influence decreases. We give it a job to do. We're assigning a job to it. We're creating a new persona for ourselves. So this pridefulness that we have for, oh, I'm a human being. Oh, I've been to school. Oh, I got a bachelor's degree. Oh, I got a master's degree. Oh, I'm able to do these things. My hands, I can make and mold these things, and I can create things. I can do all these things. I can make money. I know how. I'm really good with money. I can do these things, and I have so much money in the bank, and I got these possessions. All these things, and so on. We take pride in, but they're all false. It's just all this illusion that we've created for ourselves that this is who we are and this is what makes us happy. So we have pride in that we've created these things. So what we're doing as a spiritual being now, who is transcendent of just the physical body and the intellectual body, because all this is the domain of the physical and the intellectual body. But as we become transcendent, we get into the spiritual body and we start looking at these spiritual deities, these beings that are all within us, that are just portraying, or they are actualizing this bodhicitta that we've been trying to do for the benefit of others, and we take a deity pride in that. We're transforming. We're looking at it from a different point of view, from a more of a transcendent point of view. And we have deity pride, but it's not a pridefulness of, oh, I'm the greatest. It's a pridefulness of, we're all brothers and sisters. We're all in this together, and we're all free. And the deities, the closer we get to that inseparability of being the body, speech, and mind of the deity, the freer we become. The less that pride needs to be a part of the equation. But as we first enter into it, we need to recognize that, because this becomes, a device that helps us to, if I can use the word, save ourselves. So this savior issue You know, who's the savior? We're our own saviors. How do we do that? In this case, through Buddhism, we do it through the Sambhogaya. Until we don't need the savior anymore, we let it go. Because we let everything go. That's freedom. And there's fear there. But we have to work to dispel the freedom. We have doubts. We have to work to undo the doubts, to look into and attain the wisdom through a process of trial and error, to work through the doubts, to free ourselves. So doing it for ourselves now, this is to get rid of the self. Remember, we said in the very beginning of Buddhism, we said that, you know, that this is selfless. There is no self. We're trying to, it's just a concept that we hold on to and make real in our imaginations and so on. And it becomes that anchor, it becomes that ball and chain, you know. So the self becomes the object of all of this, but there's also the object of phenomena. Well, what about all this? What do you mean? I'm not going to be able to go out and lay in the sun again? I'm not going to be able to go for a swim in the ocean? Oh, I'm not going to be able to go on a boat or take a walk in the woods or do any of those pleasurable things that I love to do? You mean that's all temporary too? And the answer, of course, is yes. And that becomes an object of our self, you know, that this is part of us. These are my woods. This is my boat, and this is my ocean. Oh, and somebody's trying to come over and lay on my beach. Get off of my beach. This is my beach. Or you need a permit, and you need to pay me for the permit. All these games that we play, you know. So this is all part of the klesha mind. All these self games that we play. And by recognizing this is the key to being able to liberate ourselves from it. We see more and more what the self means, both in terms of my body, speech, and mind self, but also the self of phenomenal nature. So these two themes we keep coming back to. This is the circle going around. You know, we've come up a couple notches on the circle now, on the spiral, you know, but we still got many more to go. So these same concepts, these same thoughts, you know, keep going around until finally they are completely gone. They become liberated. So we say in being able to understand the abandonment of the kleshas. So it's another way of saying we're cutting ourselves off from these afflictions. We're liberating ourselves from these afflictions. We're rising above these afflictions. Another way of explaining this is to say we're abandoning these afflictions. We're just saying, oh, they're there. I'm just going to leave them. Nothing I can do for them. I'm just going to leave them. So in the case of, we break it down now in the yanas, the three yanas. the Hinayana, the Mahayana, and the Vajrayana. Do we need a break or anything? Does everybody follow me? Getting a little tired? You want to take a break?
Yeah, I just can't handle all this enlightenment, Lance. You got to slack off on us a bit. You're laying it on us thick. It's great.
Well, you were smiling so much, I thought that you were just frozen in time.
You've given me the permanent smile of samadhi.
All right. Tom's taking a break, so we take a break. Anybody got any questions?
So Lance, I don't mean to spin off into a inappropriate direction, but when I thought for a moment that when we were speaking in the realm of the cliche mind, talking about holding on to the self of the phenomena, I sort of understand how part of our affliction is believing that the world is somehow a part of us, and we sort of possess that. And I still struggle with the idea of how I'm not worried about how solid I am. I know that I'm completely transparent, and I'm not at all solid. But I still have this aching suspicion that that the universe is sort of more solid than me. I mean, I know that as far as my mind is concerned, I'm creating it all. I don't see the world as it is. I see the world as, as I filter it, and as obscured and as ignorant and biased, and but there there is a sun there, and there is a planet, and although I may I may play a part in the health of the planet, to me there just seems to be an independent existence of certain sorts of phenomena, certain forms, like the massive physical structures of space and time, that I mean, not necessarily space and time, but of yes, the physics. The physics has to exist.
So you're holding on to that.
Yeah,
let's try and understand it, though.
All right.
Let's try and understand it. You've heard the expression of a primordial soup.
Yeah, I like
heard of that?
Sauce. Yeah.
What is that primordial soup? How would you explain that primordial soup? What are the characteristics of it?
It's some sort of medium that contains all of the elements necessary to create whatever is, or whatever appears to be.
And And even those planets and those stars and those celestial bodies you're talking about?
Absolutely. Yes.
And where does that primordial soup abide?
Outside of me, outside of my mind.
Or you're not part of it?
Oh yeah, I'm part of it. You know, we're all made of stars. Um, the soup, I don't know. The soup is somehow in the, you know, in some of the dimensions that we inhabit, because that's where matter seems to be.
Do you think that we can comprehend, that we are able to comprehend what that is, what that primordial soup is, and where it abides, how it abides? You think we can comprehend that?
Uh, I think we could with the, you know, with a couple of centuries and enough LSD. You know,
But is that not just our imagination? Is it not some kind of a hallucination of the mind?
comprehending is a hallucination. Yes.
Would you be willing to say, I don't know?
Yes, and I'm willing to say that I won't know. So I try. I'm trying to draw a line when I struggle
And
with
would you
this.
say, does it matter?
Oh, it matters at the moment, you know.
Why?
Uh,
Because you see everything that you have ever thought of slipping away.
ah, you know, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm afraid of losing the idea of substance or of being. I'm just confused at. I know I didn't bring all of this stuff into being when I was born. um, so I guess you're saying it doesn't matter, and I won't know. But I think that's where I keep thinking about this the selfness of phenomena.
Well, what do you think about, all right, so you're talking about this I called it the primordial soup. So the primordial soup is comprised of what in terms of our awareness of science?
All the matter and energy necessary to make things
Okay.
and stuff.
Where does that abide? I got to come back to this question. Where does that abide?
Where does it abide?
Yeah. Where does it dwell?
With the rest of the dudes.
Now, how about space?
Space. How about space?
How about space? How many times is space introduced in the practices and teachings that we encounter in our Buddhism and the Dharma?
All the time.
All the time. So we're dealing with things that, the primordial soup, the matter and energy that is swirling around, if you will, in this space is, that's the limit of our being able to comprehend. We're at the event horizon.
Uh,
We're looking for the singularity. Why? Because it gives us comfort. Oh, there is a truth. Oh, I am valid. My mind is valid.
yeah.
I always have to remind myself, go and talk to a horse about this. Go and talk to an insect about this. They want to know what you're talking about. They want to understand your language. And how different are we from those other sentient beings? You know, we're just a fly speck in terms of time and in terms of that primordial soup. We're not even a fly speck. We're much smaller than that. We're so inconsequential, but we have this arrogance to make us think that we know everything and we can know everything. And this is the crux of what we are holding on to all the time. This is the obscuration of wisdom, thinking that we can be wise. The wisdom is letting go. Now you got all this time to relax. But no, I got to do my job. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got all these responsibilities, all this stuff. I'm so important. This is what we do. It's part of our human nature. So I'm not being I don't think I'm being very nice about it.
Oh, it's okay. I mean,
I'm being very blunt about it, because at this level, I think that's what we need to do. And you know, we may compartmentalize this conversation. Say, okay, I'll bring it up, you know, next month or some other time, and then we're just kind of put it aside. Say, okay, and then you know we're studying something else, looking at something else, and then all of a sudden, you know, oh, I remember that we were talking about on this night, and now I'm beginning to see how, yeah, this explains it maybe better than Lance was trying to explain it, and it's quite likely that's going to happen because I'm not explaining it very well. I'm just being very blunt about it. But this is the whole thing of the Mahamudra. This is the whole thing of the Dzogchen. This is the great perfection. This is the whole thing of letting go. This is the separation of the meditation and the meditator. So we do these things over and over again until we can abide in that degree of freedom.
now you said the separation of meditator and meditation. So does that exist also with the idea that there is no meditator and there is no meditation?
Well, what do you think?
Well, it has to. I mean,
It has
you
to
know,
what?
well, that doesn't have to live together because that points to duality thinking. So, you know, if there's no this or no that, then there's not.
So you're answering your own question.
Yeah, I was just bouncing around your idea of separating them.
Yeah. You know, you're just trying to explore this is the discursive thought of exploring this, you know, for the sake of having something to say.
Well, I'm dragging other people around with my ignorance, so
Well,
we
no,
might as well let you go on.
no, it's not, and I'm not trying to denigrate it by any means at all. But this is part of the conversation. This is what we do. We're sharing to do this, but we can't forget what the reality is. Look, it's Darth Vader just came in. The Emperor. What was the Emperor's name?
Yeah.
You would like to know the wisdom of everything? Darth Vader is here.
Right.
I think it was Palanquin, Emperor Palanquin.
So, you know, to say we all struggle with these things is true, you know, in one degree or another. You know, we all come to look at these things, you know, the rabbis, the priests, the lamas, you know, we're all thinking about these things.
Are you trying to get between duality and non-duality? Or are you trying to get to real life, or is that what you're?
We're just exploring all the possibilities.
Possibilities. Yeah, can I run down something?
Okay.
The star that we're at is I think it's 4.5 billion years old, and the universe is something like 14.5 billion years old, and our star is like the third. It was the original stars, and they blew up, and then there's a second set of stars, and then I think our star is like a third generation, and we're made out of the same thing. You know, neutrons and protons, and
All right. So what's the point?
well, the point is that it's all one. It's all the same. Everything is the same. Everything is the same when you look at
When
it.
you say everything, what does that mean? Does that mean all phenomenal nature? Or does that include space?
Did you not know what everything is?
He's asking.
It needs to be defined.
Everything
I
is
want to know how you define it.
everything that we perceive. Everything that we perceive is the same as we are.
So what is that we perceive? How do we perceive it?
Well, it's kind of like looking at films. Remember the old time films?
Yeah.
And they go.
So isn't that what we talked about very first when we were talking about the five senses? This is how we perceive things.
30,
We
30,
see things. We
30,
hear things. We
yeah,
touch things.
36, 37 times a minute is and
So it's a matter of our perception, but isn't our perception based on a particular point of view, a particular supposition? We're looking at everything in a very myopic way. If we look up at the sky, we're all looking at the same thing. And what if we were able to go 90 degrees around the universe and look at the universe from that point of view? How would things change?
Well, things would change only in the format that you're working with. In other words, it's like a map.
So it's our perception that changes.
No, because we perceive the same thing. We'll always perceive the same thing.
Well, this is
But
conceptual.
what we have more trouble with is that when we're brought up and the way that we are taught as we're brought up changes our outlook at everything that's around.
So are we right? Are we correct?
Well, you're starting off on the wrong, what you're starting building your person or whatever with really undocumented, I don't know, that not real building blocks. And the person comes, we'll take Trump, for example. He's supposedly intelligent and whatever, but his outlook is for him and not for the whole of us. And what the Buddha's teaching is, I think, a little bit of it is about the fact that we should be like our prayers go here, or our chants, whatever you want to call them, it is, you know, for the sake of everyone, going all of my things that I've done here is been for the sake of all sentient beings. And I'm going a little further than that, that the rocks and the water and the other stuff is all full of consciousness also. But that's an opinion, and
All right, well, let me ask somebody, let's let somebody else speak about
there
it.
might not be fact.
Do you have one final point you want to make about this? You want to bring out to a conclusion, and then we'll let somebody else talk about it.
Well, I think that is what the Buddha was talking about, the fact that we are all one, and if I hurt you, I'm hurting myself.
Okay.
So, you know, it's we're all one, but it takes an eye to be able to see this, you know, this sharing. It takes an eye to see that.
Okay, does anybody else have a point of view? Want to talk about this? Nobody? Okay,
No.
all right. Well, you want me to comment on it, or you will just let it lay there? And that's, you know, that's just what you said.
I guess.
I mean,
You know, it's I think that
well, you said, all right, so you,
one of my teachers.
let me take it to the next, let me take it to the next point now in the text. Okay. And let's look at it from the spiritual point of view, from the point of view of Django Rinpoche. Now he says, now the kleshas, this is what William was just talking about. This was the I, me, mine. This was understanding what all this phenomenal nature is, seeing it as me and seeing it as the objects, the self of this stuff that is all some degree or another permanent, some degree part of what we are part of, that we're all one with that. So now, to be able to abandon the kleshas, to be able to abandon these afflictions, to be able to get beyond that which we are perceiving, he says that there's three ways of looking at this. There's the way of the Hinayana, there's the way of the Mahayana, and there's the way of the Vajrayana. So in the Hinayana, this is the fundamental Buddhist teaching. And this is the ideal of this, the highest level of this, is the attainment of arhatship, or the non-existent self. To be able to let everything go of what William was just talking about, and being able to let all that go for themselves, to let go of your own self within that. It says the non-existent self is totally realized within meditation and post-meditation. So now I'm realized I've attained this enlightenment, and am I still walking about? Am I still going down to the village? Am I still unaffected by the suffering of others? Do I still need to eat? Do I still need to sleep? Or do I still have this body, but I can still be a non-self at the same time?
That's chop wood, carry water.
Okay. And that's a point of view.
Yeah.
Okay. Then the Mahayana says, this is the Mahayana, so the first one was the Shravaka, the hearer. Now the Mahayana is the Pratyeka Buddha, the solitary realizer. The solitary realizer is kind of in between the Bodhisattva of the Mahayana and the hearer. And here now we're saying that all this phenomenal stuff doesn't exist either. And that I only need to realize this for myself, and to realize that all this stuff doesn't exist. And that's where enlightenment is. That there is emptiness, that there is the mind. And the mind is what is exploring all of this. The mind that's all that there is. It's just mind. And that we're just, all just the eyes and ears. We're just all observation points of that mind. And that mind, we're all part of the same mind. And then in Vajrayana, it says, there's the way of the Bodhisattva and the Buddha, which says the existence of self appears doing no meditation by power of karmic imprints. That the non-existent self is present. So what that means is that we are creating this image for ourselves. We are creating this awareness for ourselves, calling it Bodhisattva, calling it a holy enlightened one. And based on our experience and knowing that we are all part of the same thing, but yet it is beyond the mind of that thing. The mind becomes a device of our being able to communicate what this is. And we're trying to do that because that's all we have. It's the game that human beings play. It's justifying their experience, justifying their existence. To be a Buddha means not to be a human being anymore. To let being a human being, but to let being a human being go. being a human being is a vehicle to get you to that point. Buddhas have been human beings.
So Lance, what I'm hearing is that we have to go beyond the mind and the thoughts and let go of them.
We don't go beyond it. We just let all the other stuff go. And then what's left is just Buddha.
Okay.
All the stuff that we have blocked up, our true nature that we call Buddha mind, is all this stuff we're talking about. And when we slowly let all that stuff go, when we clean all that stuff away and everything, all that's left is Buddha mind, what we call Buddha mind. And it's beyond, it's we're using the word beyond, we're using conceptual words to explain something that is non-conceptual. So we wind up, getting in this paradox for ourselves all the time. So again, it's an experience. It's not something that we read. It's not a vicarious thing that someone can give somebody else. It has to be experienced. We have to blow our mind. I'm not a scholar. I've said that many, many times. But in the Mahayanists and the Vajrayanists, when they talk about the Madhyamaka, and then they start talking about the mind-only schools and so on, and then they have all this great debate that's been going on for all these, centuries have been going on about, mind-only school and so on, and they stay in that. But then there's other levels that go beyond that and say, oh, those guys are going to argue forever. But then there's those that are in the Ati Yoga state, that are in the Anu Yoga state. There's no conversation. There's no arguing. They're beyond that. If you want to use the word beyond, they're clear of that. Would be a better way to express it, I think. They're clear of that. They see it, but they're not playing that game. So that's how an enlightened being, or a being, let's put it that way, a human being can attain enlightenment in this lifetime if they can attain that level of being.
What level is that?
Buddha
Is,
level, what we call Buddha level.
is that after I attain Buddhahood and I'm here, I'm chopping wood and carrying water?
Correct.
Because
And not questioning it.
yeah, because it's not
Not trying to rationalize it.
yeah.
It just becomes, it's the practical thing that we have to do. But at the same time, there's no philosophy locked up in it anywhere. There's nothing special about it. It's just, it's just being free and having to deal with living on this planet, being in this space and time, which is just all imagination. I once asked the question of a Lama, years ago, because I didn't know the real answer, but it was right there in front of me. I just didn't recognize it, but now I have a better idea. But I asked the question, well, after the Buddha after Siddhartha Gautama attained Buddhahood and became Shakyamuni Buddha, did he continue to meditate? I mean, he was already enlightened. Did he continue to meditate? So the answer is, look at the Heart Sutra. Look at the Diamond Sutra. Look at all the sutras themselves. Look at and what the Buddha never stopped meditating. Became in a state of constant what we would call meditation. He was there. He was in the clear light. And then, yes, he may go into a period of what we might call channeling, what I would call channeling or something, really one-pointed mindfulness and really, going deep into a mind stream of a question or a teaching and really transcending, what we would call the ordinary mind and making that spiritual experience, bringing it to bear, through the teachings that he gave and so on like that. So he was in a constant state of meditation. And we can do that, and if you read the biographies of these masters, you see that many of them who have attained that level, you see that transformation. You see how they go through that process. So we've been talking about the Dharma. We're talking about all these, transformative things that we learn about and the causes and the antidotes and all this kind of stuff. And it's all good stuff and everything. But learning how other people have dealt with it is really part of the experience. It gives us, we learn through teachers, right? We can learn these things all on our own, but, how much quicker can we learn if we have a teacher, someone who shows us, the analogy of putting the bike together and then learning how to ride the bicycle. So if you see somebody doing it, how much easier it is for you to do it too. And there's lots of beings like that. If you haven't met them who are living, breathing, that is completely understandable. But there's many, many books that are available to us. There's many, many teachings that are now available to us in YouTube and so on like that, where you can begin to understand these things. And just to go one step further, that's what we're going to explore is some of these films that we've got, these documentaries that really bring the culture to our experience. We begin to see it. We're not there. We're not living there 1,000 years ago, but we're going to, through vicarious experience, we're going to see it a little bit more. And it'll be a great teacher for us. So we've been on a little bit of a ride, since we've been talking together, for the past 3 years, wherever you've jumped in on this ride, is taking us, along this pathway, along this to get to enlightenment. And the thing is, we've already got it within ourselves. It's a matter of being able to get rid of all the junk that blocks it up so that you can be free. Michael says what? Lions roar, experience the nature of mind.
That's an article by Kenshin Drangpo Rinpoche.
Okay.
It reads like he's sitting in on our meeting today.
Well, there's a book called the Buddha Nature. So all this is part of Klesha mind. Klesha mind is ourselves being in the midst of this and trying to make intellectual sense of it. And each one of us has a particular point of view based on our experience, something that we hold on to. The results of that is what the Alaya mind is. The results of that is the way in which that imprints onto the storehouse consciousness. That which we will not let go of very easily. We say, oh, that's my soul, or something like that. That's the essence of who I am. I can't let that go. All the good stuff that I've done, I can't let that go. All the bad stuff won't let go of me. But the reckoning is in recognizing that and saying, oh, I got to let that go too. You know, that's the two extremes of nihilism. Nothing is happening, to eternalism, where everything is happening.
Okay.
And we're part of everything. And the middle way is in between, you know, saying, okay, in time and space, it's some of it's true here and there. You know, one man's floor is another man's ceiling, and we're going through that. But there comes a point where we get completely clear and all the barriers go away, no boundaries. So I think that's as far as we can go tonight. Any comments?
Hey, Lance, I really like the blunt Lance.
You like?
I really do. No bullshit, just real.
Well, I hope I'm always like that.
No, I mean, really, you know, it's refreshing. You know, I mean, it's just, I mean, the moment that we know, the moment I open my mouth, it's, you know, it's, what do I know? I'm trying to explain something that really can't be explained through words. And at least you're trying. You're trying to help us enlighten, or trying to put us on the path and keep us on the path, you know?
No, it's just a matter of sharing, and I'm glad that you want to hear it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's what, you know, that's what stirs everything, and you know, keeps us going. You know, instead of just, you know, listening to a recording, a book, or, you know, that just pats our ego. You know, oh, you're doing a great job. Oh yeah, you're doing right, you know. No,
you think? What do you think other Dharma teachers are doing?
I mean, that's what they're trying to do. I mean, it takes different approaches, I guess, sometimes it takes, it takes to be wrathful, really, you get slapped upside the head, hey, wake up. Sometimes, you can do it, a little bit softly, and, I guess all depends upon the person and their abilities and capabilities. But I really enjoyed the blunt lance, it's just, that really makes me personally, this I think and contemplate and start soul searching.
The wrathful lance. Or the semi-wrathful lance.
I prefer fierce.
Fierce.
Zen master lance, ready with the stick to hit us with.
Sometimes that's what we need. Good swift kick in the ass.
So there's many teachers, and they all have, and teachers are trying to explain things in their own way, and sometimes you need to hear it in different ways and so on, and that's all fine. One way doesn't necessarily negate another way.
Certainly.
Unless it's the way of negation.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I think what would be helpful is next week we'll talk about the 8 great bodhisattvas. It's been a little while since we've really talked about them. And if I put stuff in the mail, I don't know if it's going to get there quickly. I can email it and I can put it in the mail as quickly as I can. So you can at least get it emailed.
Email sounds good, Lance.
Well, my point is by having the document in front of you, you can make notes, you can see it, so it's bringing in, more senses, into our understanding.
Well, that's what printers are for, Lance.
Well, not everybody's got a printer is a problem.
Oh, well, get a printer.
Well, I'll know I can email pretty quick, and I'll get them in the mail as quickly as I can. But
By the way, Lance,
because then it takes what we're talking about tonight, and now it puts it in terms of again being a human being, and now processing this as a human being.
Lance, I got everyday consciousness and primordial awareness.
Say it again? I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you first said.
I got the document, the stapled document from that you referred to tonight by Kenshin Thrangu Rinpoche. So my mailing included it. It's kind of strange. You mailed out a bunch at one time. I would have thought Bhavani and Shankara got it too. But anyway, who knows?
I'm quite sure I mailed it to them. It was
included in the packet that had the that I got recently here, that included the 2 cartoons and the Wheel of Life.
All right. Well, maybe we'll blame it on the mail.
The mailman is stealing Dharma text.
We have that wheel. We got the one with the Wheel of Life and the cartoons. But
you haven't gotten a manila envelope the past week or so, 10 days?
Yeah, the envelope had the picture in it, and it had the cartoons, but it didn't have any outline.
Okay.
Okay, it says everyday consciousness and primordial awareness at the top of the document that's stapled.
Yeah, we don't have a stable document.
Okay.
Do not get it.
All right.
That package.
All right. Well, I'll email it to you.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Hey, I've got an interesting footnote that's hot off the presses. Remember how that Samantabhadra had? I've really wondered why it only had 2 tusks instead of 3 on one side. I think I've told some of y'all that. The picture of it I sent out, it only has 3 tusks on one side. Normal iconography shows 6 tusks or 3 tusks if only one side is visible. Mine only has 2. It turns out that's the Japanese style. So I have a Japanese scroll.
Very good. All right, well then let's do our dedication. So we'll start on page 18. Dorje Chang, Talopa, Naropa, Marpa, Milarepa, Dormalorgampopa, Pagmatrupa, and Lordri Kompa. Please bestow upon us the most auspicious blessing of all the Kaju Lamas. By this virtue, may I achieve the all-knowing state, and may all who travel on the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death cross the ocean of samsara by defeating all enemies, confusion, the cause of suffering. Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. I pray that the Lama may have good health. I pray that the Lama may have long life. I pray that your Dharma activities spread far and wide. I pray that I may not be separated from you. As Manjushri, the warrior, realized the ultimate state, and as did Samantabhadra, I will follow in their path and fully dedicate all merit for all sentient beings. By the blessing of the Buddha who attained the 3 kayas, by the blessing of the truth of the unchanging Dharma as such, by the blessing of the indivisible Sangha order, may the merit I share bear fruit. By the virtues collected by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the virtues collected in the 3 times by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the innate word of virtue, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious enlightenment. May the teachings of the great Sri Kompa Ratna Shri, who is omniscient, Lord of the Dharma, master of interdependence, continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara. Glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind root and lineage lamas, divine assembly of yidams and assemblies of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Yogins, Yoginis, and Dakinis, dwelling in the 10 directions, please hear my prayer. May the virtues collected in the 3 times by myself and all sentient beings in samsara and nirvana and the innate word of virtue not result in the 8 worldly concerns, the 4 causes of samsara, or rebirth as a Shravaka or Pratyeka Buddha. May all mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me and mine, obstructors who harm, misleading Mars, and the hordes of demons, experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, arrogance, and jealousy not arise in my mind. May attachment to fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta. And through that, may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. May the torment of suffering not arise even at the time of my death. May I not die with negative thoughts. May I not die confused by wrong view. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind as such and the pervading clarity of Dharmata. May I, in any case, gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the bardo. Om, Ah, Hom. Om, Ah, Hom. Om, Ah, Hom. In the body, speech, and mind, may I become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones. Thank you all. Any thoughts come up, any questions, don't hesitate to call or write.